Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Fuller Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Fuller Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest because they take time to join me on the show. I'm joined by Jen Kious. Now, I met Jen, and I really worked on the name. I was like, man, please don't let me mess up. But I met Jen a few weeks ago, before Christmas, I would say, and her energy was just off the charts. We were vibing. We were talking about life experiences, and we met through the collaboration that we're going to be doing later this year with mentorship. And her energy was so great. Her story was so great. I was like, man, be on the podcast. And that's basically how I do it. And so I wanted to talk to Jen about her experience as a former student athlete to the person she is today, and really leading in regards to mentorship and helping others find mentors. So before we get started, Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be part of your show. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Jen. I am hailing from Rhode Island, and I have kind of bopped around all over the place. And I'd say my career starts back at University of Connecticut, where I was an undergraduate. And from there, I took a quick detour into teaching that I thought was going to be a quick detour, and it ended up being kind of the defining point of my life. So I moved into education and working specifically with English as a second language learners. And then from there, I moved into ice skating, which was something I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about here in a sec. But I moved into ice skating. I toured as a professional figure skater for several years. I traveled all over the world getting to skate, but also getting to see what classrooms look like all across the world and how kids learn. And then from there, moved back into education, and then worked collaboratively with the NHL to also keep my toes in all things ice skating and ensuring that students had opportunities to perform in extracurricular opportunities such as skating, and then that all brought me into EdTech. So a lot of curves in there, but a lot of a focus around education and all things education. And I'm excited to share more of that story with you today.
And that's funny because I know you talk about UConn, but you didn't share that you was an athlete doing your big thing at UConn. What did you participate at UConn?
Yeah, I was an ice hockey player. So I've always been a skater. I did both figure skating and ice hockey. And at University of Connecticut, I was really lucky to be able to play women's ice hockey there. And I had a great time there. I met some of my best friends. I had some wonderful opportunities to be mentored by coaches and senior players, and then to give that back as I became a senior player myself.
Now, what was the girl? Was it not Icebox? Mighty Ducks 2. What was the name of the goalie?
I don't remember her name, but I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Did you play goalie?
No, that takes a whole brave kind of person. No, I didn't. I was left wing.
I bet I was about to say, if I find out that girl, that's your new nickname for you. But when you were doing it, let's talk about your experience as a student athlete. I know, and I've heard a lot of this, like once you're a student athlete, it's very hard for you to get experiential learning internships because it's sport. Did you have that similar difficulties as a student athlete with the ice hockey and trying to balance the classroom, and not only doing the balance of the classroom, but now it's like this assumption, like even student athletes, like you gotta get professional development, you gotta get an internship before you graduate. And all the student athletes are like, I ain't got no time to do classes, do my athletics, and work on my profession. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was hard. It was really hard. I also tend to be kind of an overachiever personality wise, and put a lot of pressure on myself to be as good as I can be, and that was difficult to balance even mental health wise as a student. I double majored as an undergraduate, and I had a focus, and then I was the captain of the team. So it was just, there was a lot going on, right? And I'd say the way I found balance was by making sure that I was taking care of myself, and making sure that I was able to put all of my energy into the things that I loved. And so that meant sometimes having to say no, and sometimes having to say, I need to go take a nap, right? It also meant being really intensely scheduled, and making sure that I was able to stick to that. It really set me up for success later in life as a professional. I didn't realize that I was doing that at the time, but it allowed me to take more creative projects as I got older. I will say that something that I wished I had is exactly what you were saying, is an internship, right? And more opportunities to find mentorship. I had fabulous mentors on the ice, and mentors who helped me as a student leader with skating. But the opportunities, especially for women in ice hockey, were few and small between at the time. They're much better now, but equity in sports is still something that we're striving towards. And so a lot of the mentorship that I engaged in was centered around how to show up as a woman in a field that's dominated by men, but not so much as far as mentorship in how to move into the real world, right? Wow. And I think that was difficult after graduating and trying to figure out, like, who am I outside of sports, and who am I, who can I be for other people? It took a minute for me to kind of figure that out, and to figure out, like, where do I sit in the world? Is it in education? Is it in education leadership? What am I doing? And actually, it was really from my students after I had graduated and I was teaching that I felt I learned the most about myself. So in trying to mentor other young people and trying to get students who, I was teaching at the lowest performing school in the state of Massachusetts at the time. And there were a lot of students who had a lot of challenges that they were faced with. And not many of the students had not had an adult who said, I believe in you and let's do this together. And so at a time in my life where I also was kind of floundering and not sure what I was doing, and looking for someone to believe in me professionally, and then also personally, I had some personal challenges going on at the same time. I was able to connect with my students who were also going through challenges, and we were able to help each other. So it allowed me the opportunity to kind of focus and clarify, what am I doing here, and provide that same support to them.
So when you graduated and maybe didn't get a chance for opportunities, like for internships and stuff, did you start applying to schools? Did you kind of was like, all right, I'll be a teacher? How did that work? Like, someone, like, you're going home, your parents like, you gotta get out this house and be a teacher. Like, how'd you get your foot into that door?
Yeah, I actually, so I was a double English and communication sciences, and I was really interested in how I could use those two things to make the world a little bit better. And so I originally thought I was going to go into communications or marketing or something like that, maybe working for a nonprofit. And I was part of an honors fraternity in undergrad called Phi Sigma Pi, and the philanthropy that we worked with was Teach for America. And yeah. My parents were first gen students, and it was really important to them that, to give back and to help others to find their way through education. And so I thought, maybe I'll apply to Teach for America and kind of follow some of the path that my parents had taught me. It just kind of whirlwind. I was accepted into Teach for America, and then I graduated, and actually, turn of events here, my mom ended up passing away very unexpectedly about a week later. And that really threw things into perspective, right? So I wasn't really sure what I was doing professionally. I had this opportunity to join Teach for America. It was something that would, honor her legacy and what she had hoped I could become in the world. And I had never thought for myself, oh, teacher, I'm going to be a teacher. But I started thinking about the power of education and about helping other young people and about the mentorship opportunities that I was both given, but also I had craved, like what I was, the gaps that I wish that I had some guidance in. Specifically around professional, steps and where I should head. And so I took the leap. I said, sure, let's do it. So I started and I absolutely loved it. And the rest is kind of history.
Now, curiosity, I'm very familiar with Teach for America, where you sometimes get a choice between extremely rural and city, right? Did you have that choice? And why did you pick the urban? Did you pick the urban one, or was it rural Massachusetts?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. My husband is actually from a very small town in Iowa. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like 10 people live there. I'm exaggerating, but there's it's very rural. Right. And that is not the life for me.
Choice. You're like, ain't no way. Okay.
Either way, I put my top choices. Oh my God. I put New York City, and I actually did my teaching practice was in Harlem. So I was really excited to be in the city.
I know that you making choice. I was like, okay, ain't no way me either. I was like, I ain't gonna be out in the boonies.
Yeah.
Like, ain't no way. So as you were navigating this and education, what was the next transition? I can't remember. Was that from that to the figure skating?
Yeah, this is wild. So going back to that student athlete thing, skating had always been a big part of my life. It was something that kept me grounded. I think if you've been coached for your whole life, it's hard as an adult to just suddenly be like, oh, what am I doing without this sport or this coach or, that guidance. And so I was going through a traumatic time personally, trying to grapple with my mom's death. And then I was teaching and I was fully invested in my students. I needed some sort of way to balance all this. And that was skating. So I started getting back into the ice and just kind of, vibing in the morning before going into school. And actually this wild thing happened. So my students, many of them were not expected to graduate, and they had all the odds stacked against them. And I said, let's walk the walk, again, like, let me be the person for you that I needed. And the person that I know, you need someone to believe in you. So I'll be that person. And honestly, because children are amazing. They can do amazing things. And sometimes they just need a little push from a trusted adult. Right. So I said, I'll do it. So as they started making their benchmarks and their goals, I said, I will do a new trick. I will get back into things and I will start doing these old figure give tricks, right? Miss Jen, the hockey player, is going to be out there doing the jumps and the spins.
Triple axel or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And falling.
I don't know if the triple axel. I just made that jump up.
No, I can't do a triple axel, but that is a jump.
Okay, yeah, I be hearing. I don't know. I be watching too many movies, man. Okay,
no, that's right.
So I'm gonna do the tricks. I'm gonna skate backwards. I'm gonna put my leg out and do twirls and stuff. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I showed them and I said, you know what, we'll make this fun. So we had on the wall, we had a giant wall size, like length of the wall poster. And it was, the benchmarks of my students, right? So as they are meeting their reading benchmarks, as they are turning in their homework, it was everything. We're tracking everything as they are, they're meeting the learning objectives. They're getting to 90% proficiency. They're doing XYZ. Miss Jen gets to do one of these tricks, right? And then we filmed and we showed them. We were like, if I'm falling, I want them to see that, right? Like, one, it's funny, teachers falling, and that's funny. But also, I want them to see it's hard work, right? And I'm out there on the ice with skaters who are maybe 10, 15 years younger, right? And they are at the very start of their career. And here I am, a teacher, graduated, and I'm like, no, I'm in here. I'm competing, on the same ice. So I wanted them to see that and see how hard it was, and to celebrate together. And so we started celebrating each other's victories. We grew together as a class. We became very cohesive. I was super fortunate to have the same group of students in my class the following year. So I was able to spend, it was a double block. So yeah, I got to really spend time with them for many years. And then eventually the opportunity came where Disney on Ice was in my area, and a former coach of mine said, hey, you've got something here, and it's that energy and the skating. I think you should try out for Disney on Ice. And it had been a dream of mine. It was something I shared with my mom, but it was something that I thought I would never be able to accomplish, because it was just like, oh no, those are like good skaters, right? But I didn't realize, like, oh, I guess maybe I'm there now. I don't know. Like, am I? Okay, we'll give it a go. And so we got a school bus. I got some funding, some grant funding to get a school bus together, and field trip, permission slip for it, all the works. And I took the kids.
You took them to the audition.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I love that even more. That's
yeah.
Crazy. So they were cheering you on. They're probably like this. They're like, everyone's coming there doing solo, and you got like a whole entourage.
Yeah.
It
was wild. It was so great. And, they could be a part of the experience with me. Right. And it was fantastic to have them see, how hard you sometimes have to work to get somewhere. And you don't always know at the end of the tunnel what that's going to look like. But you can carve your own path as you're going along, right? And eventually you'll get to where you need to be. And and so I got in, and then that same year the state was taking over the school, and so it was kind of a transition point for the school anyway. And I opted to say, I'm gonna just travel for a year and skate with Disney on Ice. And I was really wonderfully blessed to know my students. Almost all of them ended up graduating from high school as well. So it was just a wonderful kind of segue into a new path for all of us. And 1 year with Disney on Ice turned into 4. So I ended up.
Okay. You was like, let me just on a whim do this audition, whatever, do it. But then it turned into 4. And you're traveling.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while you're traveling the world, and doing this Disney on Ice, what character were you?
Oh, yeah. I played a whole bunch of different characters. I'd say my favorite character that I portrayed was Sebastian the Crab. I just really loved Sebastian. He is such a silly character. He's down to, have a good time. He's the energy guy, right? He's bringing the crowd together. He's getting the audience engaged. He's, he's giving Ariel some mentorship, if you will, some feedback, some support, but he's also trying to make sure everybody's having a good time and keeping things cool under the sea, right? So I loved playing Sebastian.
Did they give you a chance to get like free tickets to Disney World?
Actually, no.
What? At least let you go to Disney World for like a staff retreat or something, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't. I think the perk was I was able to travel to all these different countries and to see the joy that Disney brought to folks across the world. And yeah, again, to do some of these public relations events where I was able to go into schools and I was able to meet teachers and kids across the country, across the world, and get to see what education looked like in different pockets of the world, which I would never have been able to do otherwise, right? So going to see a school in Croatia and what that was like, and comparing that to a school in Rio or Peru, and getting a chance to meet kids all over the place. That was, to me, that was invaluable.
Now, you were a first-gen student because, for your parents, is that correct? Or they were the first-gen students?
They were the first gen. I'm second.
Okay, sorry. They were the first-gen students. So then I'm always making big stereotypes, first-gen or not. Were you able, during your childhood, to get outside the country? Or was this a new experience for you as well, seeing the world?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I was not. I was fortunate to travel around the country as a child, but I mean, we didn't have the money to be going to, to Europe or anything like that. That wasn't ever going to be a thing. And certainly in my parents' lives as well, that was never something they could have imagined. And it was actually really incredible as a performer with Disney. Both my grandparents immigrated to the United States from Poland and then from Germany during World War II. And it was really interesting to be able to go back. So I had the opportunity to perform in near the hometowns of both, where my grandparents, both sides, where they had grown up and lived, and where my ancestors are from. And I was able to spend time over there and get a deeper understanding for our culture and where we've come from and the roots that they left when they immigrated to the United States, and then to have some perspective on how hard that might have been to leave everything, right, and come to the States and start fresh, and what education allowed their children, my parents, to be able to accomplish. So it was a really cathartic experience.
Were they escaping, Nazi Germany? And so
they were.
Were they of Jewish descent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so more powerful, right? Like to go to Poland, where millions of Jewish people passed, and to see not look at me like I made it, but look at me like you survived, and generations after you, thank God for making that move to America.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it was wild. I'm getting chills even just thinking about it. We I took a tour actually of Auschwitz, and I was able to go there, and I saw my name, not Kious, that's my married name, but I saw
family name, right?
Yeah, I saw my family name in the book, so I know I have ancestors that would have passed in that facility, and it was unreal, to be in those spaces, and then to know, I exist here, and I'm even able to be here because of the sacrifices my ancestors have made. So I'm so thankful for that, and it was just really, I'm just so grateful. So
life takes us all over the place, man. I think that's just in presence. Think about, I'm just doing this, but the fact that every day I wake up, so you survive something. I think about that, right? Like the fact that we're alive right now, our ancestors survived a dinosaur. I'm just making that up, but the dangers of the world, the fact mathematically that we're here generationally is a blessing. But then we think about the conflicts around the world. So it just reaffirms that. I think I tell everyone, think about your lineage and your history, and it shows for you to make it to where you are, so many people sacrifice this and that and all that. The fact that you're that is a blessing, So we're transitioning. You say, all right, I only wanted to do 1 year. I'm doing 4 years. What's the next step? How did you, what was the next step there?
Yeah. So I met my husband, and I was like, I have got to get off the road.
Was he a Disney on Ice dude?
Oh my gosh, he was the stage manager, and I love to joke that he was a skater, but he was not. He was the stage manager, and he had been on the road for 13 years. So
he was done too. He was done.
Yeah. And, I would say getting off the road again, it was another transition similar to leaving the world of being a student athlete. So especially for folks who have been on tour for much longer, the roadie life is a life, right? It's a lifestyle. Yeah. And the mental challenge of trying to figure out
roots, right? And never feeling grounded, because you're always moving. I mean, I'm a military brat. And so I say that as that was something I yearned to. I was always tired of making friends and having to leave. And it's a great thing for a little while, but I think a balance. I would never say I never wanted the life of a military brat. I think it's a tremendous blessing. But at the certain time, I was I'm glad I just did it as a child, and then it was done, and I got to stay put in my adult life. So that balance. So I'm sure your partner, husband now was I'm done with this roadie life.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's very similar. I've actually bonded with folks who are military or have experienced that kind of lifestyle, because it's similar in so many ways, as far as the travel and never putting down roots, right? So getting off the road was hard. I mean, we had to decide who are we as as professionals, and what do we want out of this life, and and where do we feel the most at home, and also trying to explain who we were and what we had done to the world, right? So when we went out and we were applying for jobs, and instead of having people say, were you a princess at a birthday party? I was like, no, that's not what I did. How do you explain this? How do you explain your background? How do you explain, that's a lesson that's a job as well. Of course it is, but that's not what we did. It's like, how do you say, like, who you are, and how do you navigate that when people don't have any context or frame of reference for what it's like to, live in a hotel in a different country every week, or, to show up and perform in front of 10,000 people one night, and then the next night to be in a hospital doing an event where you're meeting with children who are at the end stage of their life. Like, how do you go from that to like saying, yes, this is what I did, right? How do you sum up all of that, all of those experiences? That was really challenging. And yeah, again, I liken it to trying to leave the world of being a student athlete, where you're so coached and you're so scripted and you have such a structure to your life, and then you're just kind of free in the world, and you're like, how do I rewrite who I am and share that with everyone? Even with myself, like, how do I help myself understand who I am, and how do I navigate this world? So, we kind of struggled a little bit when we first got off the road.
So, I think I want to respect your time. So we're going to just jump right into it. Tell us a little about your transition to EdTech, and how this has almost like a full circle moment allowed you to be still an educator, and not say entertainer, but still entertain and just kind of fulfill that, or maybe even being in EdTech, how does that still fulfill that athlete, that competitiveness? Talk about the transition, and then talk about being in the space, how it still fills all those different experiences that you had.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we both knew that we wanted to be in Florida, at least to start off. And I knew, educational equity was something that, I had started with Teach for America. And again, being in places all over the world, something I got a firsthand glimpse at. So I was able to say, I'd like to be in ESL again. I'd like to be in the Tampa Bay area. We started looking for education positions around there. And I dove head first. So I started teaching ESOL again at a school in Plant City, Florida, which is just outside of Tampa. I had some students who were either migrant workers, or they were the children of migrant workers working on. So you might see, if you have strawberries in your fridge right now, you'll see that a lot of them come from farms in Plant City, Florida. So I had a lot of students who spent several hours on those farms every day. And I got really involved in educational equity and making an impact in the larger community on those students' lives. At the same time, I also was working in making sure that the extracurricular field was leveled for students. Skating was such a big part of my life, and making sure that students had that opportunity to dabble in skating was important to me. And the NHL, the Tampa Bay Lightning, had a great program to be able to make that affordable and or low cost or free of cost for students in that community. So I was able to work with them to get some programs off the ground for students to skate. And so all of that was going on, and then 2020 hit, and the pandemic meant that a lot of those supports that were set up to provide equity for students in underserved communities, whether in the classroom or on the ice, all of that was pulled, right? So as we kind of faced what the future looked like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in a world where my impact wasn't as impactful. And so I was looking for professions that would stay in education, but would allow me to make more of a scalable impact, and specifically around equity. And that led me to Mentor Collective, which is where I still am now, all these years later. And, I, again, was thinking about mentorship and thinking about the mentorship that I was able to give to students, and the mentorship that, again, I both had and craved. And I thought it was a natural fit. And so I've stayed here. I've really enjoyed where I've been, and I've been able to see my impact hit students, internationally, and again at scale. So instead of having 20 students in a classroom, we're able to make an impact on 1 million students across the world, right? So that's been really, really wonderful. And that's why I'm here still in an EdTech space.
Now, what I would say, as you scale up, what ways could, you say mentorship really hit that scale of impactful lives, right? Like, so for instance, you could just as easily be back in the classroom, but you feel like you're scaling up. And I want to dive into that. Why either EdTech or Mentorship Collective, or just the concept of mentorship separately is scalable and impactful on a larger scale?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think when more students, so first of all, using tech, right? So being able to add tech to your product means that you can scale something, right? So instead of just me being able to mentor one person, having a tech-enabled platform allows me to be able to mentor maybe 10 people. And if there's many of me, then there's many more students that I can, make an impact on. But I'd say the value of that impact comes in seeing the next generation move forward into spaces that maybe they wouldn't have previously. Maybe it means that they are going to, be mentoring the next generation that's coming, after them, right? Or maybe it creates doors and opportunities for folks to do things that they never thought possible. I really believe that mantra. If you see someone in those shoes, you can see yourself in those shoes, right? And so letting folks know, like, this is something that is an opportunity for you, and here's how you get there. That creates a mindset shift, which is beyond one person, right? So then dozens, hundreds people, thousands of people can see, like, oh, I could also do that, right? And then they can be that. And that's what I think about when I think about the impact of mentorship at scale is the power of changing a generation and generational mindset of what's possible.
All right. So I know you got to go. So we're going to do our last segment, shot for shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first, or I go first?
Oh, okay. You go first so that I can think of something.
All right. What is your favorite sport to watch? And who is your favorite team to watch?
Oh, okay. Well, oh man. Okay. You know what? Of course, everyone's going to say, oh, ice hockey, right? She's going to say ice hockey. Yes, I have to say ice hockey. But I do have to say I'm twofold, right? Like, I have to support the Lightning because I think the organization's fantastic. What they do for the community is fantastic. And their entertainment is off the chain. So if you have ever gone to a Lightning game, you are going to be entertained. But if I didn't say the Bruins, I would be in really big trouble. My family, oh my gosh, they would come down on me. So Boston Bruins would be my home team, but the Lightning also has my heart.
Okay, your question for me.
Oh my gosh! All right. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Dang,
that's a question.
No. I don't. I mean, like, okay, a burger, 2 buns. I don't think it's a sandwich. It's a burger, right? We have given it a strong identity as a burger. Hot dog, while it could be criteria, right? The bread, the meat in between, but then also the bread is connected, right? It's not the same as a sandwich. The bread of a hot dog is connected, so it's not the same type of bread. So I'm gonna say that is not a sandwich. It is its own entity. It is a hot dog. A hamburger is a hamburger. A hot dog is a hot dog. Neither one of them are sandwiches. They are hamburgers and hot dogs. And then a sandwich is designated as something between 2 pieces of bread with other different meat besides ground beef.
That's a hot take. There's a lot of people that would disagree with you.
And I'm fine with that. Give me the scientific fact of the bread. Here's my only, this is the one thing I'm going to hold on to, is that the bread is not connected in a hot dog. I mean, the bread is connected in a hot dog.
Well, what about a burrito then? Is that a sandwich?
No, it's a burrito.
Burrito. The type. That's,
So, technically, it's not even close because it's not in between 2 things. It's wrapped up in a tortilla.
Right.
So I think people are trying to think that a sandwich has to be, the combination of ingredients wrapped or not wrapped between bread. But even when you go to the sandwich place and you say, I want something in a tortilla, they don't call it a sandwich. They call it a wrap.
That's true. I never thought of that.
So, I'm going to stand on this. The criteria of a sandwich is 2 separate breads that don't are not connected. Because even a pita is a pocket. It's not a sandwich.
Yeah.
Right. So these are all, the thought is these bread is not connected.
It's too they don't touch, right?
They don't
Yeah,
touch.
like ice cream
Except for
sandwich.
hamburger. Hamburger might be the one that can argue with, like, a hamburger could be a sandwich technically, but not a hot dog.
All right. I'm
I'm
changing
smart.
the
PhD in communication, right? There you go. Oh, that's like my money's worth. Shout out to Mason. He taught me how to think logically about that. I might do a research paper on hot dog and sandwich. All right.
The data is in. The
The
data is
data's in. So this part of the show is called shout outs and plugs. Get to show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs, things that I should put in the show notes, like websites and links. And then, I know you got to go. So go ahead. Shout outs and plugs.
Yeah, shout out. The number one shout out would be to my husband, who has always supported me in everything that I do, and all of these turns, right? And like always having someone there in your corner to support your play, and maybe to give you that feedback, like, hey, let's take this turn instead of that turn. That is always really helpful, and I appreciate that deeply. And then I'd say, as far as a plug, I would plug